Halo is amazing. No, really, it is. Halo is amazing. Some outside of the Halo community see it as that one game with the green dude that goes shooty shooty, and that couldn't be further from the truth, really. Halo is more than just that shooter with the green guy. It's a collection of games, books, comics, animated shorts, artwork, and people, all working to tell a set of stories. These stories entail sacrifice, courage, bravery, death, futility, and the feeling of staring into the eyes of an enemy so powerful it may as well be an act of God, all while spitting in their face and loading your rifle. But it's also a story that tells you what it means to be human: grief, sadness, joy, love, parenthood, and the ability to keep on going. But at the end of the day, Halo is about one thing: people. Through all that death, violence, and grief, a consistent theme that plays into Halo throughout the games and books is what it means to be human. I felt like, since it's the start of the new year, I'd start us off on a high note and talk about what makes Halo so great by looking at how it has grown and shaped over the years, and looking at its games. It's now 2021, and Halo come November will turn 20 years old, and Halo Infinite will release. Are you ready? I am. Starting us off with the classics, Halo Combat Evolved was a game that changed everything. With its fun combat loop, incredible story, art style, voice acting, and sandbox, the game quite literally set the grounds for most mechanics we see in modern shooters today. I'm a younger fan, being 16, yes, but my first experience with shooters as a whole was through Halo Combat Evolved, like many older fans. I feel like I could relate to both at times, both the newer fans that like the new stuff and the older fans that like the old stuff. I was 8 at the time, and I was staying with my uncle in Northern California. He let me play his original Xbox edition of Halo Combat Evolved, and it just blew me away. The only games I had played up until then was Mario Kart Wii and Super Mario Bros. Wii. Both fun games, but this was just amazing. The story and music captivated me, and I can never forget stepping out onto the Halo ring for the first time. It was a wow moment. Like, I was in a much larger world than I realized. And the best part about it? Combat Evolved was silly in its own way. With colors and noises, it had this very fun play on it. Even the blood was stupid in its own ridiculous amounts. And the game knew it. The Marines would cheer and holler, they'd talk like they were a bunch of buddies playing video games themselves. And you just gotta love Johnson.
You heard the lady. Move like you got a purpose.
This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill.
Man, we let those dumb bugs out to the middle of nowhere to keep them from getting their filthy claws on Earth. But we stumbled onto something they're so hot for that they're scrambling over each other to get it. Well, I don't care if it's God's own anti-son of a bitch machine or a giant hula hoop. We're not gonna let them have it. What we will let them have is a belly full of lead and a pool of their own blood to drown in. Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Damn right I am. Now move it out! Double time!
But there's more to it than that. About midway through the game, it takes such a dark and twisted turn. Nobody expected the Flood. Nobody. They weren't on the box art, they weren't advertised, they weren't hinted at. It was all so sudden. For those of you that don't know, the Flood is essentially a space parasite with terrifying properties. I'd explain more, but that's for another video. Wink wink. Being 8 years old at the time, everything turned upside down. The silly, funny bad guys, the Covenant, became fellow survivors that, while I had to kill, in a way I almost felt sorry for them. The Marines, my gamer buddies, the badasses, just became little playthings to be ripped apart by the Flood. Characters that you saw as these invincible leaders like Captain Keyes became victims of a creature that genuinely had no care for you or them. The game took on a more horror and desperate-oriented theme. Even despite the horror and fear, it was still a fun and exciting adventure. With its music and dialogue, it still managed to just keep giving and giving and giving. And of course, nobody could ever forget that ending, that amazing and precious Warthog run. Looking back on it, with the knowledge of lore I have now, and having read the novelized version of Combat Evolved, I also realized the sad reality of the game. The crew of the Pillar of Autumn, the Marines, all 2,300 men and women serving on the Autumn, have lost everything. They know that there was likely no going back home. Their husbands, wives, children, mothers, fathers, none of them will get to see their beloveds who's fighting out in the stars. Never again. These people continue to fight on anyways because they have a job to do. They're brave, talented, and they made the ultimate sacrifice voluntarily. Combat Evolved inspired a generation. It literally rocked the foundation of gaming, and it set the stage for what's to come. It wasn't over. Bungie was just getting started. Come 3 years later, Halo 2 would literally wind up the entire United States and Europe, making headlines and shattering records. Then again, in Halo 3, it's taken on an identity where even those outside of Halo, at the very least, recognize the familiar helmet of Master Chief. You know, they say you should play video games on the hardest difficulty. Well, this isn't one of them, but it's not the difficulty that made Halo 2 shine. It was the story. Halo 2's story was like a movie, and one that broke norms. It humanized the enemy. Instead of the Covenant being the faceless foe from outer space, we got to see them as they are, all while continuing humanity's story, its struggle. The Covenant are an authoritarian religious society whom worships foreign artifacts, led by 3 high prophets. Here we're introduced to the Arbiter, an elite that, as a result of the Master Chief destroying Installation 04, was stripped of his rank and honor, literally being branded and tortured in front of hundreds.
One of our most treasured instruments. Long have you led your fleet with honor and distinction, but your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure.
Hey, it was heresy.
There can be no greater heresy. Let him be an example for all who would break our covenant.
I think one of the big holy shit moments of Halo 2 was playing as the Arbiter for the first time and getting to use an energy sword. And the energy sword is a big thing because we always saw the little energy sword in Combat Evolved, and we're like, man, I want to use one of those one day, and now we get to use it. Then again, Halo 2 had a lot of holy shit moments to it. I will never forget watching Master Chief jump out of Cairo Station with the antimatter bomb for the first time. It was such a fucking awesome moment.
Pretty good.
An interesting detail that I've noticed while playing the Anniversary Edition of Halo 2 was that we never got a good look of the Arbiter's eyes until about halfway through the game when he's betrayed. It's an interesting touch, almost as if he was part of that faceless thing I mentioned, only to be separated at the last moment. Eyes are the metaphorical windows to the soul, so for the rest of the game, we can see his soul, so to speak.
And the prophets learn of this, that they will take your head when they learn. Fool. They ordered me to do it.
Betrayal.
Late Night Gaming once did a video discussing the Arbiter and his development as a character. It's a great watch, and I'll link it below. Halo 2 also saw the introduction of a variety of other characters and the return of old ones, like our old friend Sergeant Johnson. God, he gives the best speeches.
Where's the rest of your platoon?
Wasted, Sarge.
And we will be too, sir, if we don't get the hell out of here.
You hit Marine?
No, sir.
Then listen up. Usually the good Lord works in mysterious ways, but not today. This here is 66 tons of straight up, HE spewing divine intervention. If God is love, then you can call me Cupid.
What about that scarab?
We've all run the simulations. They're tough, but they ain't invincible. Stay with the Master Chief. He'll know what to do.
Yes, sir, Sergeant.
Thanks for the tank. He never gets me anything.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Look, I can go on and on about Halo 2's story, but we only have so much time here, and it's best experienced on your own. Halo 2 was the start of internet-based matchmaking through Xbox Live. Back in Combat Evolved for multiplayer, people would have LAN parties, all that jazz, but Halo 2 was one of the kickstarters of what we see in games today, live-supported multiplayer. In a way, you could still feel the impact of Halo 2 to this day. Halo 3, like Halo 2, shattered records and made headlines across North America, Europe, and also parts of Asia. It was the epic conclusion to the original trilogy, full of a wild ride of emotions. Halo 3 was famous for its fun and innovative sandbox, multiplayer, and story. I'm sure many people watching this would have memories of getting online with their buddies, going to the map Sandtrap, and just duking it out on the elephants, and fucking around with the Banshees. In particular, if you somehow managed to flip one of the elephants over, you'd get a funny little option to flip it back over, and it went something like, press RB to flip what? How'd you manage to flip that? As for its campaign, it was a lovely way to finish off the original trilogy. We lost good people along the way, good characters, but it's been done. This is one of those stories that's just difficult to articulate the magic of it. How it feels to finish the fight. I don't know, it's just something you have to experience for yourself. I don't have much else to say. Go play Halo 3. It's a personal adventure for everyone.
Double kill. Triple kill. Overkill. Killing frenzy.
Before I talk about the rest of the games, I wanted to stop and take a look at the Halo community. It really is a special one, and I have a story to tell you. Now, I haven't really brought this up on the channel because I wasn't sure how to. It's a sensitive and controversial one. Not necessarily controversial, but it can be taken as that way. And I also didn't bring it up because it just wasn't really relevant to the channel, and I didn't want to just use it to get attention. But not terribly long ago, I came out as trans, both on my Insta and Discord, which has a small but lovely group of people that I talk to and others that follow my artwork. It was really refreshing to just see their, frankly, very supportive reactions. I was also open about it on Installation 00's server, and the response from all ends was, once again, nothing but kind and supportive. Now, of course, there's been those bad apples that have given me issues, both for being trans and also for other reasons, but the community as a whole, nothing but kindness. Regardless of who you are, what country you live in, what gender you are, what religion you abide by, you're always welcome, so long as you don't spread hate, that is. Come on in. And of course, there have been incidents where people were just fucking awful and went after others. But almost every time, I've seen the community step up and condemn such behavior. Even larger content creators will say something. Not only is the community a kind and accepting place, it's also a highly intelligent one. Installation 00, who I've mentioned already, has an entire series dedicated to breaking down the sciences behind aspects of Halo. It's called the Most Detailed series, and if you're interested, I'll link it down below as well. He also had an entire ARG going for a little bit just to support the Halo community. Hidden Xperia and Halo Canon make excellent lore summaries and breakdowns for those that are interested in the lore but don't have time to get into the books or just want a summary. Eckhart's Ladder makes videos discussing starships and lore for both Star Wars and Halo, breaking down battles and strategies employed in each fight and more. There's also incredibly talented artists within the community, and as an artist myself, I interact with that side of the community often. Warfare Wombat, who has an SE shop I'll link below again, makes amazing mini replicas. I got some for myself. Look at this Halcyon! The camera doesn't do it justice. I can see the docking bays, the Shiva launch tubes, and even the hangars and hangar doors, and what I believe is the drop bays for the Hell Jumpers, Hell's Waiting Room. The level of detail on their stuff is outstanding. They didn't pay me to say this, by the way. I'm doing this because I genuinely love their work. It's not just the replica makers that shine. The Halo community is full of talented voice actors, painters, etc. Modders as well. There's an entire group of people who've made a full conversion mod for Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion, a real-time strategy game on Steam made by, I believe, Stardock. Sins of the Prophets is the name of the mod. It's practically a whole game of its own with lots and lots of things to do in it. This takes dedication and talent. They've been working on this for years. The Halo community is truly a magical place. Here are some Discord servers I'd recommend checking out. Halo Headquarters and Installation 00 server are excellent places to get introduced. They've got a little bit of everything there. Art, lore, general discussion, gameplay, the works. You'll love it there. And while you're at it, why not join mine? Who knows, maybe you could get in on a game night or video sometime. Or just chat with myself and others.
I take it back. Navy got its butt kicked.
Hey, Romeo, remember when I told you to shut your mouth?
Yeah?
Consider that a standing order.
Captain, 15 clicks.
This one needs a little more of an appropriate theme. There we are. ODST is special amongst the Halo games, despite it really being a branch off of Halo 3. You're no longer a super soldier, but an orbital drop shock trooper. Still impressive for a regular old human, but gone are the days of leaping over brute chieftains' heads as the Master Chief. There's a different vibe to ODST as well. I think Mombasa Streets is a good example. It basically says, hey, you've been going non-stop for a bit. Just slow down, relax, walk for a little. With its beautiful soundtrack, ODST pulls you into the more human aspect of Halo. You see love, humor, anger, and all around, you see people.
Thanks for picking such a tall building. I'm really digging all these stairs.
Do you ever get tired of bitching, Romeo?
You ever get tired of busting my balls?
Point taken.
Personally, it's my favorite game of all time and the highlight of the franchise in my heart. I have so much to say about it. Perhaps I'll elaborate more on my experience with ODST someday. What makes ODST even more unique, however, is the mystery of the glyphs, something that's captivated members of the community for years, and in recent months it's gained a lot of attention in the community. Why? Because it's a legitimate mystery that needs to be solved, ranging from biblical references to actual acknowledgement from devs. The Glyph project it's special, and one that I hope to cover more in the future. Rocket Sloth and Installation 00 got in on this and made some good summaries of everything with the glyphs. Installation 00 recently put out a video about the story of Inferno and how it relates to ODST. If you're curious, you should go check it out. Reach takes you back to the elements of being a Spartan, but this time with a twist. Reach takes this invincible painting in your head of the Spartans and just burns it, trashes it. This was a game dedicated to portraying the harsh realities of the Covenant War, although it had some key differences in its gameplay. For one, it became less sandbox-oriented with the introduction of things like sprint, armor lock, and jetpacks. While personally it's not my favorite choice, I can say with confidence that Reach executed this well. The gameplay is fun, unique, and engaging. The weapon sandbox changed too. Gone is the battle rifle, and instead you have the DMR. The assault rifle takes a back seat, so to speak, with its use being more limited and its function less effective in a lot of ways. The DMR dominates in the UNSC arsenal. It's kinda like your go-to weapon, if you can grab one. Think of it as the combat-evolved pistol of Halo Reach. The grenade launcher made its debut as well, and to put it simply, there's a reason it made a return in Halo 5. We also saw the addition of other weapons, not just to the UNSC's arsenal, but also the Covenant. However, we can always talk about the weapons sandbox of Reach some other time. Moving back to the story, Reach depicts the events of the fall of the planet Reach. At this point, it's late in the Covenant War, and the UNSC is losing. Bad. Reach is important for a variety of reasons. It's essentially on Earth's doorstep. It's responsible for the production of a large chunk of the UNSC Navy, including its supercarriers, has a large population, is the intelligence center for the Office of Naval Intelligence, and it's also the training grounds of the Spartan IIs. The game spends a lot of time showing you shots of the world and planet, almost as if to say, this is what you are supposed to protect. And then you get to watch it burn, get glassed, because you failed. Just about every plan has gone wrong. Failure after failure after failure. Even the little tiny victories are overshadowed by them.
Slipspace rupture detected.
Gamma station control, reading multiple pings below the orbital defense.
Slipspace rupture detected.
Yeah, we're picking up anomalies too. Are you reading it?
Slipspace rupture
Multiple
detected.
Covenant signatures.
Slipspace
Anyone
rupture detected.
They're everywhere.
Slipspace rupture detected.
The whole damn Covenant,
Slipspace
please.
rupture detected.
The game spends a notable amount of time giving you the perspective of the back of a pelican. Each time you step off of it, in my own head, I always saw this as the... How should I put it? The getaway car moving through the burning streets, and you stepping out was your way of saying, not yet, I'm not giving up yet. As if you're not ready to leave Reach. And at the end, when you finally get the chance to leave, you don't. There's a common bit of laughter in movies and gaming about main characters getting plot armor, but in Reach, that doesn't exist. Nope. Nobody's exempt from the hand of death. Not even you. But in a way, at the very end, when you delivered that fragment of Cortana to the Pillar of Autumn, that was your redemption. The Autumn's escape made up for your failure to protect Reach, and from there, humanity would ultimately survive the war. Reach was basically Bungie's metaphorical ride off into the sunset for the franchise, and it was a worthy way of doing so. Halo 4 is a bit of a hot topic in Halo. Personally, I have many fond memories playing Halo 4 with my best friend Cal, and I do like Halo 4's story. I love the didact, really, and it's a shame they just shoved him aside in some comic, though I suppose in the long run it was for the best. Particularly, the highlight of Halo 4's story for me was Chief and Cortana. Chief, he's a child soldier trained to kill from the age of 6 at the cost of proper and healthy emotional growth. Cortana has rampancy. Think of it as brain cancer for AIs, except the tumor cells are made up of fragments of you, all screaming nonsense in your head, slowly making you think yourself to death while your body's functions slowly but surely shut down. Chief isn't equipped emotionally to handle this. Here is Cortana, someone that has, through Mjolnir, learned to know him better than he may even know himself sometimes. His friend, the one he had promised his now deceased comrade Johnson that he would never let go of, is dying. It's not an issue he can shoot at or dismantle with his hands or lob a grenade at. He can't crush it beneath his boot. He can't drive over it with a warthog. It's something totally out of his control. And that was probably destroying him inside. We know from the book Fall of Reach, Chief, John is his name, hated being aboard Navy ships, especially during combat. He hated feeling powerless, and this was something he was completely powerless in. And he has no idea how to help. You can see that John is visibly uncomfortable around Cortana at times, not looking at her, fiddling with his weapon, and when she confronts him with the reality that she's likely going to die, Chief snaps. Not the kind of snap that you and I would do, but for his character, it's a snap. You can see it's almost childish in a way, and insensitive. Halo 4 isn't my favorite story or gameplay-wise. In fact, it's my least favorite in terms of gameplay, and its multiplayer just wasn't that notable. However, I will always remember Halo 4 for its emotional ending, and will gladly hop on and play a game or two with a friend.
We need to move.
These people are gone.
And more will follow if the Didact reaches Earth.
They'll pair you with another AI. Maybe even another Cortana model if Halsey lets them.
That's not going to happen.
It won't be me. You know that, right?
Like 4, 5 is a hot topic, but on steroids. Its gameplay was a major change of pace for the typical Halo game, and to say the least, it upset a lot of people. Its story was horrible at times and barely passable at best. However, there is a section of the Halo community that does enjoy Halo 5, if not adore it. And to be honest, I can see why. Every Halo brings something to the table, and 5, regardless of anyone's opinion, including my own, does that. Its gameplay isn't necessarily bad per se. In fact, it's got some pretty satisfying mechanics and it's even fun at times. In a way, it's like the inverse of Halo 3. Halo 3 used the tools the player can equip to make a diverse array of strategies you can perform. Halo 5 uses the abilities of the player to do the same, and there is a lot you could do with the armor abilities and how you can interact with the enemies. The weapon sandbox is fun too. There's so much that you can do with it. Each weapon feels useful in its own fashion, and the game's visuals and locations can be downright gorgeous and unique. From fighting in the underbelly of a city out in the middle of the ocean to running down the side of a gargantuan machine that is trying to shake you off of it. I may rather play just about any other Halo game than 5, or really any game in general, but if you were to tell me that you enjoy Halo 5, I'd believe you. And if you were to say you absolutely despise it, I'd see why, easily and without need for explanation. And hey, I won't lie, I'm open to the idea of a Halo 5 game night sometime.
Bad guys are the ones trying to take your head off. Every time I get to visit the bridge, I get vertigo. You know, I try not to look down, but every time.
Feels like it's been a long time since we did this.
Halo Wars and Wars 2 are the oddballs of the Halo games, and they're good ones at that. They're RTS games, so they take a break from the typical first-person shooter style of Halo. They have fun and fascinating stories with amazing characters and surprisingly satisfying real-time strategy gameplay. However, I want to specifically talk about Wars 2. I love the Spirit of Fire, especially now. Its crew is like the Captain America of Halo. Their war is gone, done, over. They've been frozen in cryo for decades and are waking up to an unfamiliar galaxy, fighting an enemy that wasn't their enemy. It's an enemy to humanity, yes, but it's not their enemy. The remains of the Covenant are the crashed debris and ships rusting and decaying on old battlefields. The Banished are incredible as well. An issue with the Storm Covenant and the Covenant remnants led by Joel and Dama at Halo 4 and the first 5 seconds of Halo 5 before 343 yeeted him into character deletion was that 343 tried so hard to make them out to be like the Covenant, as Late Night Gaming put it. But it's not. The Covenant is dead. The Banished, on the other hand, they don't try to be the Covenant. In fact, they're very different. They're led by brutes, and they're more tribal and unstable. The only thing holding it together is their leader, Aatrox, and even then, infighting is still a thing. I love their portrayal in Shadows of Reach as this faction that's all trying to just... They're not really a faction, they're more like a group of factions kinda working together. Other times they're fighting and just trying to impress the leader, Aatrox. Despite all this, they're still an effective fighting force, and they've gotten so much traction in the Halo community that they've actually made the jump into Halo Infinite. Who knows, maybe we'll get that Master Chief versus Aatrox fight after all. Halo is special. It's not often you see a video game franchise get 2 movies, a planned TV show, more than 20 books and comics, brand partnerships, and more. But it's not just the success of it that makes it special, it's the community, the stories, the universe. I mean, how often do you see someone breaking down the scientific details behind Mass Effect or Doom down to the most minute details in a 50-minute video? How often do you see members of a community willing to work together on a project for 11 years? How often do you see a community raise $400,000 in a month for charity? Because this actually happened back in April of 2020. Well, yes, there's been more impressive charitable feats. That's not the point. The point is that Halo as a franchise has created something great. A community that gives back, and one that I'm proud to be a part of. Thank you for coming all this way. I appreciate it. 2020 was an awful year to say the least. We saw a thing that cannot be named spread around the globe. We saw people lose their jobs, their livelihoods, even their lives. And now it's 2021. Now, I won't lie, it's not going to be the best year ever, but we can certainly work to make it a better one. Happy New Year. See you in the cosmos, friends.